Hey, gang, it's me. I'm Jeff, and I'm live from an undisclosed location. Hopefully, the audio is going to work okay out here. It is a beautiful day in my undisclosed location. And where am I? Well, it's undisclosed. But why am I here? This is my annual February trip to they call it the EFCA Team 500. And it's pastors from around the country who serve in churches of the same or similar size to ours at Grace in Longmont. And every February, we sit around and we share stories. There's about 25 of us that meet in a room, along with Kevin Complin, the Free Church president. He's been here the last 2 days as well. And it's a great time to share ideas and celebrate what God is doing in all of our different locations and pick each other's brains for good ways to solve things that we might be going through as church. So thank you, Grace Church, for allowing me to come and do this every year. It is a beautiful time here, and we have one more day to meet, but I wanted to give our regular breakdown and update video here today. So here is some of the stuff I'd like to talk about. Last Sunday, we had Elijah pass the mantle to Elisha in 2 Kings chapter 2, and it was a good time to reflect on our turn with whatever God has called us to do, and the need to have a succession plan, to have a protege, a Padawan, if you want to use the Jedi term, or if you just want to use the Bible term, a disciple, somebody that we're pouring into, because that really is the job, to go and make disciples. So who is it that we can be pouring into on an individual level, and who is pouring into us in that way? All discipleship relationships are relational, but not all relationships are discipleship. And to make sure that you are connected in that way, we really want to do that on purpose. So let me know, or let us know in the office, if you need some help making those connections, because we want them to be not random and not just for the sake of community, although that is really important, but that relational connection is there for disciple making. And that was one of the ideas we're trying to get out in the sermon last week. If you're coming this Sunday, Pastor John is going to be preaching on the death of Jezebel. And that's going to be pretty cool from a few chapters forward in 2 Kings. And I acknowledge that in talking about the Cubs World Series win in 2016, that I kind of stuck it to John pretty good, because he's a Cleveland fan, and his memories of the 2016 Game 7 of the World Series are not as good as mine. But I also know, and I knew then, that he's going to be preaching this Sunday. And I really hope he gives it back somehow. So I'm looking forward to that. I hope you will be as well. Speaking of Pastor John, if you watched this video last week, he and I shared some updates about the youth room rebuild that we were raising money for. If you were here as a member or just got wind of what happened last April at our business meeting, you know that the elders and the staff were putting before the congregation at that meeting a request to open a special designation fund for the youth room costs. And at that time, we thought the cost would be X number of dollars. We had $30,000 in the budget already, and we were hoping to raise another 60, give or take, to pay for that. And if you watched last week, you know, because we found asbestos, well, not me, but people who look for asbestos and know what they're looking for, did find some in the drywall and in the patching of the drywall, that for that to be abated would drive the price up. And then after the abatement, now we'd have to do other new things, because the ceilings now are going to have to come out. And so, as happens, the estimated price is now bigger than what it was before. And I've gotten some good feedback from folks since that video that we need some assurance that this isn't just some boondoggle. That's not a word anyone else used, but I like that word, boondoggle. It's not a boondoggle. It's the way a lot of these projects go. But I just want to remind you, if the way we set this up isn't that we are going to take anybody's gifts to the general fund to cover extra costs, the goal here is that this special fund means if you want to give to the youth room as the price goes up, you are welcome to do it. And if we're going to use any general fund dollars besides that original 30 from a year ago, that'll come out in the budget meeting that we're going to have next month at the end of April when we discuss the budget. So if you have concerns about that, if you have questions about that, email me, jeff@gracelongmont.org. It's not Jeff, it's jfoot@gracelongmont.org. You'd think I'd know my own email address, but apparently I don't. Or anyone on the staff or any of the elders or anyone on the finance team, we're all in this together, and we're trying to do this in the most upfront, clear way we can. But obviously, God has blessed us with a lot of youth, and he's blessed us with a phenomenal youth pastor, even if he's a Cleveland fan. God is using John in so many great ways, and we want to put our energy into making that the best use of our facility that we possibly can. And so this is a plea, if you haven't been giving to the youth fund, that that would be putting our money where God is moving. And there's an intent behind that, and we want to do that right. If, again, you don't want to do that, that's fine. Give to general fund, give to missions. Missions always needs some good financing. Give to the Grace Care Fund for benevolence. That is spiking right now, the need, because of the current migrant situation that we're facing, and et cetera, people calling the church looking for help. So if you want to give to that, great. The beauty of these special funds is above and beyond. But the general fund is published. If you have questions about that, let me know as well. But as we get closer to our budget congregational meeting that happens every April, now would be a great time, if you have questions, to let us know. Let's get the discussion started now, so that that meeting at the end of April doesn't give anybody whiplash or surprise. So just wanted to make that plea. I also, last week, had a great question posed to me. It did not contain the word boondoggle, but it was a really good question about what is the relationship between leaders and members at Grace Church. And the reason this question comes up, or I think is important, is we have a lot of folks who might be watching this who are new to Grace. And you might be used to a church you came from and how they governed, or you might be watching this and you've been at Grace for 40 years and it keeps changing, and you're like, what's going on now? How did it change? Why did it change? This would be a good chance, because I'm in these meetings now this week where I'm talking about this with other pastors, and how do you do it and how does this work? I thought this might be a fun little recap. My answer when the question was posed to me last week was I went to Ephesians chapter 4. And in Ephesians chapter 4, it says, I'm doing this off the top of my head. You can check my work if you want to look it up. I recommend it. But it says, he gave to the churches some to be apostles, prophets, evangelists, shepherds, and teachers. And there's a lot of books that have been written about the APEST, the APEST. What are those roles? Are they spiritual gifts? Are they roles? Does everyone in the church have one of those roles? I'm not going to get into that now. What I will say, though, is I think you could summarize this as he has given the church leaders. And the job of those five, whatever you make of them, it says, is to equip the saints to do the work of ministry. So however you define a leader, and at Grace, that could be a ministry leader, it could be a small group leader, it could be a deacon or an elder, it could be a staff member. But anyone in leadership, our role, according to Ephesians 4, is to equip the saints to do the work of ministry. Leaders are given to the church to lead, and not everyone's a leader, and that's totally okay. With leadership comes great responsibility. I think I saw that in a Spider-Man movie, but it's also very true. And the goal of being in leadership isn't to do all the stuff or to make all the decisions, but it is to lead the way we think God is directing, and then equip the people in the church to use their gifts in a variety of ways to serve the church and to accomplish the mission that God has called us to. And at Grace Church, if you're new to us, or just as a reminder, we are a congregationally governed church. And that means there's certain things that only the congregation gets governance of. And within the Evangelical Free Church of America, there's at minimum 5 of those things. And now we're going to see if I can remember these off the top of my head. I may not. One would be changes to the Constitution and bylaws. So back in 2021, hey, there's my thumbs up. We revamped all that, and that was a very big congregational process with multiple discussion meetings, multiple drafts before we voted, but that was all the congregation changing Constitution and bylaws. So that's one. Number 2 would be the approval of the budget. And that's why this budget meeting at the end of April is always a hugely important meeting every year. I don't just get to say, hey, I think we should spend X number of dollars on this line item because I think so. No, this is a congregational thing. We own it together as members. This is what we think God is going to provide money for and how we should spend it the best way for his kingdom. That is a group congregational decision. Number 3 is appointing elders and senior pastor. So those things always have to be done congregationally. I don't just get to say, hey, here's a friend of mine, I think he should be an elder, and that's not how it works. That goes through the congregation. That's 3. Acquiring or selling of property. That kind of makes sense, I would think. And number 5, what's number 5? Taking on debt, maybe? Oh, approval of new members as well. So at Grace, we have, and that list could go on a little bit longer. If you've been to our business meetings, you know kind of the things we do. We do affirm new members, and any changes to the budget go through that are above and beyond 10% of the total budget. So things like that, we do have policies for it, and those things stay within the governance and the power of the membership. In the past, and in a lot of smaller free churches, it's also common for it to be congregational leadership, where the congregation meets to make decisions about some vision things or some leadership things. And by and large, my heart is that the bigger the decision, the more we go to the congregation with that. But sometimes, in the pace of a church our size, and as we grow, and as we have grown, sometimes the leaders just have to make leadership decisions. And that's why the congregation elects the leaders to lead. That doesn't rule out conversation and discussion about these decisions, and we need to do our level best to get these things communicated so that there can be feedback and discussion. But the goal here is that the members put people they think who are gifted in leadership, who then can lead, and the congregation governs these big picture items. So that's the operational ethos that we follow. And it's encouraging to me to be at this kind of gathering that I'm at this week, just to hear that that's actually pretty commonplace in churches our size. Nobody's got the 6-board model for making decisions. Maybe, again, in a smaller church, you might see that. But the goal isn't to let the elders and the pastors just have a blank check and free reign. Obviously, there's a give and a take and a communication, and we need to lead humbly and well and with openness. And so that is our heart, and that's our commitment. And it just felt like it was time to recap some of that in case you're coming in here in the last year or so since we've made the bylaw changes, or maybe you think, well, I remember what it was like in 2006 or whatever it might be. That's really our heart right now. And I think it does follow Ephesians chapter 4 and what we're trying to do. And I love it. I got to say, I just love the openness. I love, hopefully you're getting used to me in these videos or on Sundays. I don't have anything to hide. Well, I do, but I don't want to hide them. I want to be open. I want to be honest and humble and as transparent as I can be. I'm approachable. My email's always available. My door's always open. I'd love to talk to you about any of these things if you have concerns. But I know a lot of you don't. I know a lot of you are like, yeah, that's one of the reasons we like Grace, and we trust you guys make good choices. So just as we're heading towards another season of budget, I thought this would be a good chance to plant these seeds. If you have thoughts, if you have concerns, please let us know. If you have great ideas, we want to hear great ideas. Right now, hopefully we get the youth room. They're starting the process of the asbestos next week. This week, it's Tuesday. It's happening this Thursday. So it won't affect our children's ministry. The youth will be moving into various rooms on Wednesdays and Sundays away from their normal space while that all gets taken care of. But just wanted to double down on that message from last week. Everything has been done through the right process. And if you have questions, don't hesitate to ask. Couple other cool things that are coming up. It is Holy Week early this year. That's going to happen at the end of March. And so we're going to start putting a lot of effort into the Palm Sunday, Good Friday, Easter Sunday week, as well as our Easter egg hunt that the children's ministry does that always has a great turnout. We have our pre-K pop-up, speaking of children's ministry, that's having a great impact. Our continued pursuit of integration with Grace Latino. One thing that happened last week, I just want to celebrate with you guys and let you know, our food pantry, which serves quite a few people every Thursday when they come to pick up some food, last week had a big Valentine's Day banquet for anybody who comes and receives food from our food pantry. All the volunteers in the food pantry put on aprons and served just a phenomenal uh, banquet. It's not even a luncheon; it was more of a banquet. And Jay, who you might know from our music team, he's the guy with the really awesome high tenor voice. He played guitar and sang for it, and it was just so cool to see these people who otherwise may never set foot in a church get loved on and cared for as a result of the awesome people in our food pantry. So if you want to help out with anything, including that, we have space for you. Otherwise, please know that God's doing great things in our church. We're growing. Our attendance last Sunday, not that we're numbers driven, but it was we had more kids checked in last Sunday than any Sunday prior since COVID. So we're on an upward trajectory. If you pay attention to the parking lot this Sunday, if you're there, and you'll see just good things are happening. People are coming. You may only see the people in your section in your service, but God is blessing our church right now. And it's a beautiful thing to kind of sense that momentum. And keep praying for our music director search. We're getting very, very close to the end of that. And I can't wait to announce some results. But at this point, nothing to announce formally yet. So keep praying for that. But otherwise, things are awesome. And I love being at Grace Church, and I hope you do too. I still, now that I'm doing these for both breaking down and update, I can't figure out how to end these. What do I say to kind of wrap it up? And